Good morning. In this week's parasha of Metzora, we read about the purification and rehabilitation of the person with tzarat. After learning in last week's parasha how tzarat is diagnosed and treated, we read in this week about what to do once tzarat has gone away. Even though the actual tzarat affliction, the actual skin disease, has disappeared, he still needs a number of procedures, at least 4 different procedures, before he can be fully rehabilitated into community and society. So the first one is that the Kohen will come to him, because again, he's outside of the camp, outside of the community. The Kohen comes to him, and he must take 4 things in order to purify himself. The first one is a pair of birds. The second one is some cedar wood. The third one, hyssop. And the fourth one, wool dyed red with a worm extract. Now, out of these 4 things, Rashi divides them into 2 groups. 2 of them, he says, symbolize the sin, the problem, and 2 of them symbolize the solution. The birds and the cedar wood both tell us the problem. The birds, because birds Twitter and chatter all the time, and that's the same way as somebody who speaks Lashon Hara is going around gossiping and twittering and chattering. The second one is the cedar wood, which represents arrogance, because arrogance, gaiva, is also one of the things that brings about tzarat. The second 2 things, the wool dyed red with this worm extract. So it's from the worm extract, which the worm is a very lowly thing, symbolizing humility, and so too hyssop, which in contrast to the cedar tree, which is this high, mighty, great tree, hyssop is a lowly bush. Now the question is, I'm going to focus on this idea of arrogance, of the cedar being the problem, and the hyssop and the worm being the solution. What exactly is the problem with arrogance? What is what is wrong with a person thinking a great deal of themselves? It's known, there was a saying of Winston Churchill once that somebody asked him to describe a certain person. So he says, he is a very humble man with much to be humble about. So if you have somebody who is genuinely talented, great, wise, strong, brave, all of the various attributes, attractive, that we would want to use to describe a person, are genuinely true in his case. So what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to pretend it's not there? You have somebody who does something unbelievable. They do it with the greatest skill and talent. And you go up to them and you say, Yeshar Koch, that was amazing. Right? Now put yourself in this person's shoes. You just really achieved something. People come up to you and say, that was awesome. What are you supposed to say? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was terrible. It wasn't terrible. It was very good. So what are you supposed to say? Thank you. Yes, no, it was great. That's not appropriate. So so what is the answer? How are we supposed to understand arrogance? The Maggid of Dubna has a wonderful story to explain this. That he says there was a man from the village coming to explore the big city and coming to see the sights, and he sees a mansion, a palace, the likes of which he's never seen before, and he's just absolutely overawed by seeing this. And he walks over and he knocks on the door and he just wants to see the inside, and the butler opens the door and he sees the magnificent floors and the way the ceiling is done, the fittings, the decor. It's just he's just standing there gobsmacked. And he says to the butler, "This is amazing. Whose house is this?" And the butler says, "It's mine. It's mine. This whole thing's mine." And he's saying, "Wow." And the owner of the house hears this. He comes over to the butler. He says, "It's not yours. This isn't yours. This isn't your house. It's mine." And the Maggid says that's what arrogance is. That we are claiming as our own what really belongs to Hashem. And we have a similar statement from the Ramban. In the Ramban's famous letter to his son, he says that one must be very careful of arrogance, because a person who becomes arrogant is clothing himself in Hashem's clothes. Because Hashem, Gadol Ga'alavesh, Hashem has clothed himself in pride. And so pride is something that is reserved for Hashem, not for human beings. Now this sounds very strange, because we have other statements from the sages. For example, in the Gemara in Megillah, which says that Kol makom she'ata motzeh gdulato shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, sham ata motzeh anav tenuto. Wherever you find the greatness of Hashem, there you find His humility. That whenever Hashem is described as great and powerful and awesome and mighty, at the same time the Torah tells us Hashem takes care of those who are oppressed and downcast, of the, so to speak, lowliest of society. The Torah always goes out of the way to tell us how humble Hashem is. So what do you mean that it's only Hashem is supposed to be arrogant? That doesn't make any sense. Why and how should Hashem be arrogant? So I think the answer is to be explained based on something that Rabbi David Aaron says, and I think this is what the Maggid of Dubna and the Ramban are both saying. Rabbi David Aaron says when somebody will praise you for your intelligence, he says, did you create intelligence? Did you invent intelligence? Is this your intelligence? The truth is we know that it's not. We are recipients, we are channels for Hashem's intelligence. Hashem is the source of all intelligence. And it's the same with courage and strength and creativity and artistic talent and beauty. All of these things are godly powers. They are Hashem's powers. And we have the privilege and the pleasure to channel them into the world. When we study and understand Torah and bring that into the world, we are channeling God's wisdom. When we treat other people with kindness and with love, we are channeling God's kindness and love. We did not create kindness. We're not the masters of kindness. And yet we are able to access and draw on kindness within ourselves, which is God's kindness. And therefore the point is not that God is arrogant or prideful, but that God is authentically the master of these powers. We are not authentically the master of these powers. We are authentically the recipients and channels of these powers. We can authentically take credit in some way for being the ones to make these powers of God manifest in the world. As the Pasuk Yirmiyahu says, Bezot yitalel amitalel haskel v'yodeoti. If somebody really wants to take pride in themselves, it should not be for them being strong, wealthy, whatever else. It should be for them knowing God, right? It should be for us being a part of this process. And so, yes, God is, so to speak, the ultimate in humility, because Hashem does not overreach Himself, overestimate Himself. The arrogance is when a person is cutting themselves off from God, is cutting themselves off from reality, is seeing all of these great things which are authentically great within themselves, which are authentically within themselves, but are seeing them as being from themselves. And it's like being in this magnificent palace and having the privilege of taking care of and presenting and being a custodian for this palace, and then making the mistake and thinking, therefore it's my palace. So coming back to our question of what are you supposed to say when people tell you how well you've done something, the way Rabbi David Aaron always puts it is he says in such situations your response should be Baruch Hashem, that God is the source. In other words, yes, it was very good, and it was very good because it was God, because it was coming from Hashem. That's what made it so good. I'm not denying the reality that it was good, yet nor am I patting myself on the back from it. I am acknowledging that this was genuinely, authentically good as an expression of the greatness of Hashem in the world. That's the true response. And the Gemara says something very interesting about arrogance, is that it says, Ko adam sheyesh bo gasot haruach. Every person who has within him arrogance, there's a Gemara in Sota, page 5a, Hamad Aleph, ein afaron nin'ar. His dust will never move. In other words, he will not be resurrected at the time of the resurrection of the dead. And the Maharal of Prague, what's the connection over here? The Maharal of Prague says that the dust of the earth is something that connects all of us. The dust of the earth is something that is the ultimate, number one, the ultimate equalizer, but the ultimate ground and source of all of us. And it is from the dust that we gain our life. It's from the dust that Adam was created. It is from the dust that we will all be recreated with the resurrection of the dead. That dust is not simply something lowly, but something that we all have in common, that we all come together to share. Something that encompasses all of us. And so a person who cuts himself off from the collective, who identifies himself as being an isolated individual, as having all of these powers within himself, he is not able to tap in to that life-giving power of God, which is manifest through the dust. So that's the idea of the Metzora, who has cut himself off through society, through his arrogance. He is exiled from society through thinking that he is the master of his own powers. And the restoration of that is to have the realization that, yes, you have incredible powers within you, but the powers within you are not from you. We have the pleasure and privilege of being a channel for godly powers in this life. Shabbat Shalom.